Hi, thanks for watching. Okay, this is going to be the fourth video in this series where I'm talking about how I am asking, and I'm kind of proposing maybe just as a possibility that there is an exaggerated inverse relationship between the serotonin mechanisms and the dopamine and serotonin mechanisms, where it would be kind of similar to what you see in people who have a tendency to have addiction issues. Okay, that could be an explanatory theory as to why people end up with cluster B disorders. Okay, so basically we're looking at the proposal. It's just a proposal, and even if it's wrong, okay, just exploring it could give a lot of insight, I think, into what our experiences is with cluster B. So basically, the proposal here is maybe we all have an inverse relationship between dopamine and serotonin, but the idea would be some people have an exaggerated inverse relationship. Okay, so that when you get little spikes or little rises or chronic rises in the dopamine, you would get crashes or real strong decreases in the serotonin. Okay, so it's dopamine serotonin. Okay, so basically, I want to kind of try to give a better explanation as to why that would produce a personality disorder. Okay, and basically, it's easy to see why it would produce, I think, an addiction. Okay, but why would it produce a personality disorder? Okay, so that's kind of where I want to go. The first thing I want to propose here is that I think we need to distinguish between having mood state, and having transformation states. Okay, because one thing I noticed growing up in my cluster B family. Now, my brother and sister, I don't think they're cluster B. I think my parents are cluster B. I think I have like a couple of aunts and uncles that I know are cluster B. Okay, and I'm cluster B, and I've known people who either have addictions or cluster B, and I can see a lot of similarities. So basically, my experience, let's say with my father, okay, and it's hard for me to talk about, but basically, there were times when he would have moods. Okay, like a good mood, bad mood, happy, sad. My mother too. She could be happy, sad, but there were times when it wasn't a change in mood. It was literally a transformation. It was like they morphed into another kind of person. Okay. What is the difference? How is it that sometimes we just have mood shifts, and how is it that sometimes we morph and we transform into another person? That has to be something very interesting. Um, and I think that I would propose that when the serotonin is relatively high, okay, when we have little changes in our dopamine and the serotonin stays fairly present, okay, or it just decreases a little bit, I want to propose that we are actually composed of like two different people, sort of at the same time. We have simultaneous people in us. Okay, so like I want to say that when you have the serotonin fairly high, that actually expresses a part of us that is the relatively stable, relatively comfortable, relatively at peace with the world, sort of comfortable with the world, not antsy, not nervous, just kind of steady. That's like another part of us. Okay, now when that part is present, okay, that gives us kind of like the common trunk, the common, it's like the trunk of the tree, where you can have different moods, but the moods are taking place on the same tree. Basically, it's like being rooted in the ground, so that I could be happy, I could be sad, but you can tell it's the same person. Okay, but when the serotonin goes down, you lose that stabilizing personality. Basically, it's gone. So all that's left is not only the shifting, but I think that when the serotonin is down, I think I'm sorry, let me say this again. Yeah, the serotonin. When the serotonin is down, I think the dopamine shifts actually take on there are more transformations. Okay, and so we really transform into different people, literally. And I think that's it's almost like the demonology of the human psychology, that when the serotonin is present, we're humans having moods. Okay, but when the serotonin goes down, we're different demons. Literally. I say that poetically, but I think there's room for poetry. We can't just be prosaic beings. We are also poetic, and I think even though we know it's factually inaccurate to say that, I think poetically it's true. You know what I'm saying? Just like we can all question whether there was a real Jesus or whether the Gospels are actually true. I mean, and I question that. I'm not some kind of dogmatic, but we can at least say that those of us who have read the Gospels, that the love in them is true. You know what I mean? The intended poetic purpose. The actual, the idea of raising people from the dead out of love. That drama, that passion is actually true. You know what I mean? So it's like I say that in the same way here, that having different demons, in the low serotonin mode, on a poetic level, that is actually true. In a phenomenological sense, there is a kind of truth to it. And I think it's also a good shorthand. Why be afraid to say my demons? People say I have my demons. Well, we do have our demons. Just not to confuse between the poetic and the prosaic. I think in our modern American culture, I think we don't have enough poetry, and so when we do have a little poetry, we kind of blend it with the real, with the prosaic, and we get confused. We should be comfortable enough in our reality that we can have the poetic and not be confused between the two. But in any case, I would say that I think when we're in a situation where our serotonin is lower and lower and lower, then we don't have moods, because moods occur in one person. When we lose that serotonin kind of basis of the personality, I think we don't have moods anymore. We become transformed. We have transformations, and we become different demons, basically. Okay, so how would that explain the personality disorder? Okay, basically, I'll try to explain it in terms of narcissism and maybe BPD. Okay, let's see how far I can get in a few minutes. Okay, so basically, let's say that, okay, I believe that most of the typical narcissistic, kind of typical narcissistic features, I think those are dopaminergic features. Those are dopamine driven features, because dopamine is correlated with aggression, fighting. Dopamine is related to assertiveness. Okay, everybody needs dopamine to be a little bit extroverted. You got to have dopamine. Competition. Those are dopaminergic processes. Okay. Also, the gratification of having glory, having people being admirable. Those are all dopaminergic. That's dopamine. Okay. So it's the gratification and the aggression, okay, and also the assertiveness, okay. Now, there's nothing unhealthy about any of those things, okay, by themselves. But the question is, where is our serotonin in the picture, okay? And as I've talked about before, like say in my family, my brother and sister, they're very pleasure driven. They're very enjoyment based. Their life is all around enjoyment, and they live a very dopamine driven existence. But why are they not cluster B? Okay, they're not cluster B because they don't lose their humanity. There's something, whereas in my case, when I get too much into the enjoyment and the gratification, my serotonin like bottoms out. Okay, and so you can tell there's something different about how it affects me. Whereas other people, they can retain their humanity and be in all the hedonistic whatever, you know. But I can't, or at least I could do that. But you would notice in me. I would really, something would be missing from me. Okay, so basically, so how would that apply to somebody to make their narcissistic symptoms, to make that a disorder? Okay, so like again, just being competitive, being assertive, being even slightly kind of challenging people and playfully sort of putting them down. If it's just on the playful level, or if it's in a human, if the delivery is human, you could tell it's a human. It's just that's being sport. That's sports, or that's politics, or lawyers competing, or salespeople competing over selling a house. Yeah, I'm going to sell 10 more houses than you. You take it in a playful way because it's delivered from a human to a human. It's whatever. But what makes the difference between that and somebody who actually has the disorder? Okay, so I would argue that when you can enjoy and participate in the dopamine world, okay, but still retaining a reasonable amount of serotonin, the serotonin personality is what tempers these different kind of more aggressive modes of the human, so that they don't come across as inhuman or as cold or as sharp or as dark. You see what I mean? But then when you have that, when the serotonin is too far down, okay, and you don't have that regulation, your body, your neurology cannot have the dopamine and maintain the serotonin. Okay, like that's my problem. Okay, well then, when you engage in the same gratifications of sort of standing out or sort of being, competitive, it's going to have so much of an edge that it won't even seem playful anymore. It won't even seem sporty anymore. It's not. There's no more sportsmanship. It takes on an edge where people instinctively really get put off by it, and it really is different. Okay, so we're no longer a human engaging in narcissistic things, but it's like the human is gone and it's just the narcissistic stuff, and it has a way of exaggerating. Okay, so even though, we may not even be aware of it, but when I have, let's say, more serotonin, okay, first of all, I'm probably not going to be as intense in my narcissistic aspects. The competitive part of me is probably going to be a little tempered just by the serotonin, because I'm already gratified just by living, just by being a person. So I don't. It doesn't need to be so intense. So that when our serotonin is down, those dopamine states, they're going to be more exaggerated, and they're not going to have the balancing and the blending to make it seem like it's a human being. So it's going to come off much harsher, and it's probably going to feel much harsher for the actual person. So that would be my best explanation as to how the sort of the depletion of the suppression of the serotonergic mechanism, okay, is going to make that dopaminergic dopamine part sort of stand out more and be maybe too edgy, and also come off to other people as not being human. And people aren't going to trust you, and you're going to have to also mask more, to maintain even basic relations with people. So then that could explain why you end up sort of acting like, trying really hard to act human, and at the same time sort of being a wolf in sheep's clothing, basically. Wolf in sheep's clothing. Yeah. So why would that explain the BPD? Okay, so basically, BPDs are a good example of how they're not just having moods. Okay, if you had the serotonin levels up high, you'd just be a person just having different moods. Okay, but when the serotonin goes down, it's like demons in transformation. It's like you're just transformed into different demons. So just having, let's say a desperate mood where you're desperately angry. Okay, if you have that serotonin there, you can have the anger, but it's sort of going to be tempered, and you're still going to feel the humanity there. But when the humanity's, let's say, gone, that serotonin part's gone, then it's just the raw, pure moods, and it just comes across as more, I mean, I'll say poetically demonic. We know I'm not talking about a demon, but it just has so much more of an edge that we recognize it poetically as not being human. It is more the monster state. So I think we should be very open. I mean, take all the taboo out of it. We can be in a monster state. We can be just a raving, monstrous, whatever, because that's what happens when call it the serotonin part sort of depletes. And just be honest about it. It happens with drug addicts too. When a drug addict is so into that dopamine cycle, you know, there's a reason why they start acting crazy, where they start acting really manipulative. They get super arrogant, super selfish. People on cocaine, meth, they really transform. Well, yeah, because when you have that serotonin goes down far enough, you're no longer a person with moods. You're actually you're a person with demonic transformations, and it really does transform. So I think we should take that seriously. Just be honest. Just take all the taboo out of it. It's just a fact. It's what happens when we get imbalanced. And then the question is to face it and to be fearless and experimental and to do things in our lifestyle to at least play with the balances. We don't have to be committed to it. It could just be experimentation. And then we can see if that allows us, through discipline, through technique, through practice, a way for us to find regulation where otherwise we don't really have regulation. So anyway, that's my best explanation of how I believe, at least on some basic level, the imbalances between the dopamine and the serotonin could explain really how we see the personality disorders presented. Thanks.